Welcome to the Creative Forge, your director's blueprint for building a robust asset stack architecture. Over the next several slides, we'll explore the systematic foundation needed to transform how creative teams organize, access, and manage their digital assets. This version 1.0 represents a comprehensive framework designed to forge stronger creative workflows through intelligent asset architecture. Here's a fundamental principle we need to establish. Every project needs some version of these assets. Now, the format varies. What you need for a digital project looks different from a print project, which looks different from a video project. But here's what doesn't change: the need itself. Whether you're working on web, print, motion, or anything else, you need organized, accessible creative assets. That universal need is what we're going to build our framework around. To transform chaotic creative ideas into something actionable, we've developed a 6-layer asset stack. Think of this as a pyramid of clarity. At the foundation, you have your premise document, the core idea. From there, you build upward through a world document that establishes context, a character and stakeholder file that defines who matters, and a structural outline that maps the narrative flow. Once those internal layers are solid, you create your visual and brand reference set to maintain consistency. And finally, you synthesize everything into a pitch or summary document. Each layer is essential because each layer informs the next, ensuring that by the time you're presenting to stakeholders, every decision is grounded in a structured, thoughtful foundation. Now we zoom in on the actual mechanism. The premise document distills raw inspiration into a confined, readable space. Think of it as a filter. On the left, you have raw concept, all the fragmented ideas, references, and inspiration bouncing around. That passes through the premise filter, shown here as a focused lens. And on the right, what emerges is order. 2 or 3 clear paragraphs that crystallize your creative intent. This isn't about dumbing down your idea. It's about achieving the clarity that gives everything downstream: your outline, your script, your design, a unified direction. Now we establish the physical and tonal boundaries of your world. This is where the world document becomes your creative North Star. Think of it as defining a sandbox, a protected creative space with clear rules and character. The world document has 3 critical components. First, context, the historical and situational backdrop that explains how your world came to be. Second, rules, the strict laws and mechanics that govern what's possible and what's forbidden. And third, tone, the atmospheric and emotional texture that gives your world its distinctive personality. Together, these 3 elements create a unified framework that keeps your entire creative team aligned, allowing you to make consistent decisions and quickly evaluate whether new ideas belong in your world or not. Now we track the actual players and their motives. The character or stakeholder file isolates the humans in the system, plotting their specific vectors of desire. For each stakeholder, you'll document 3 things: their entity name, their core role, whether they're a key player or stakeholder, and their vector. What do they want? This simple framework forces you to move beyond abstract roles and instead map the real, individual desires that drive behavior. By plotting these vectors across multiple stakeholders, you begin to see where interests align, where they conflict, and how the system actually moves. Here's a fundamental truth about storytelling. Structure isn't something you impose on a story from above. Instead, structure is the byproduct of collision. Think of it like physics. When 2 forces collide, they create an inevitable shape. In narrative, that collision happens between character agency, who your characters are and what they desperately want, and world constraints, the rules, context, and limitations of their world. As your character's desires push against those constraints, the friction creates the structural outline of your entire project. This means your story's shape is never arbitrary. It's the natural form that emerges when wants collide with reality. Understanding this tension triangle is the key to building stories that feel inevitable and true. With tension defined and themes crystallized, we now map the shape of the entire project. The structural outline translates that creative tension into a sequential architecture, a blueprint of pacing, beats, and critical transitions that will guide everything we build. Notice how 3 keystone moments anchor this timeline. The inciting catalyst at 1 hour marks where momentum ignites. The point of no return at 1:45 represents the moment of commitment. And resolution at 2:20 provides our destination. The orange highlights show our major story beats, while the teal threading beneath shows how supporting elements weave through the structure. This isn't arbitrary. These waypoints are where audience psychology fundamentally shifts. By establishing them with specific timings, we create a shared map that prevents creative drift and gives every team member clarity on where we're headed. With your abstract narrative defined, it's time to ground the look and feel. The visual or brand reference set anchors that abstract story into tangible aesthetic reality. We do this through 4 critical dimensions. First, your color grade and palette sets the emotional temperature. Second, typographic hierarchy organizes visual information and amplifies your brand voice. Third, lighting and contrast create dimension and drama, guiding where the eye goes. And finally, material texture adds authenticity and sophistication. It makes the brand feel real and tactile. When these 4 elements work together, your narrative doesn't just exist in words or ideas. It lives in a fully realized aesthetic universe that your audience can see, feel, and trust. We've explored how to forge your creative idea internally, but now comes a critical challenge: making it legible to outsiders. The pitch or summary document is an act of translation. It takes all that internal complexity, the tangled ambitions, technical details, and contextual knowledge that live in your team's minds, and converts it into external clarity. Think of it as a legibility bridge, spanning from your internal context on one side to your external stakeholders on the other. Without this bridge, even brilliant ideas remain invisible. With it, you create the possibility for real engagement, buy-in, and momentum. This framework crosses all boundaries. Notice how the same strategic storytelling structure applies equally to cinema, tech startups, and brand campaigns. A logline, an elevator pitch, and a campaign manifesto serve identical functions in their respective domains. They hook attention with a core idea. The story Bible, market landscape, and cultural zeitgeist analysis each provide the deep contextual foundation. Protagonists and antagonists drive films, user personas drive tech, target demographics drive brands. 3-act beat sheets organize narrative flow, product roadmaps organize launches, and media flight plans organize campaign rollouts. This isn't coincidence, it reveals a universal truth. Compelling storytelling is the fundamental currency across all industries. When you master this framework, you can tell powerful stories whether your medium is film, technology, or marketing. Now let's diagnose where your creative bottleneck actually exists. Different creative assets require fundamentally different cognitive states. Some need abstract, exploratory thinking, while others demand concrete, rule-based precision. I've plotted the major assets across 2 dimensions, from internal to external, and from abstract to concrete. Notice how premise, world, and visual reference sit higher up, representing those big-picture vibes and ideas. As you move down toward character, outline, and the pitch, things get increasingly concrete and subject to external judgment. The real friction typically happens not within each zone, but in the transitions between them, when you have to shift cognitive gears. By mapping your own creative assets this way, you can identify exactly where your process breaks down and why some work flows effortlessly while other pieces cause intense friction. As we wrap up, I want you to think about your own creative workflow. Which of these 6 asset types do you find easiest to produce? And more importantly, which one tends to be that last thing you actually finish, the thing you're scrambling to complete at the deadline? If this structural alignment resonates with you, if you've recognized your own creative challenges in this framework, drop the word forge in the comments below. That simple word tells me that this methodology clicks for you, and it helps us build a community of creators who are aligning their assets strategically. Use these hashtags to share your insights, and let's continue this conversation.